I stepped out of the taxi, the cold air stinging my face as I juggled a box of sample ornaments. The door creaked open, and there stood Grandpa, his sweater vest clinging to his frame like it always had. "Buddy, why did you come by taxi? What happened to the BMW we gave you for your 21st birthday?" he asked, genuine surprise in his voice. I froze. The box in my hands suddenly felt heavier, like the weight of every unspoken thing between us had just landed on my shoulders. I wanted to say something, anything, but I didn't. Instead, I forced a smile. "It's nothing." "Really," I muttered. Before I could explain further, Mom stepped into the hallway, her practiced grin plastered on her face. "That car belongs to her sister now," she said, with an ease that made my stomach tighten. She was always quick to have the answers, always in control. I watched Grandpa's face shift first, confusion, then disbelief, and I could see him trying to process the words. He looked at Mom, then me, back at her again. "Bongs to who?" "Bree," Mom said, her voice light and dismissive. "You know how hard she works." It was said like a punchline. Grandpa didn't laugh. There was a brief, uncomfortable silence. The old clock in the hallway ticked louder than ever, and I could hear Bree's voice from the other room. A casual, "It's just logistics," as she leaned in with a water bottle, her ring light reflecting off her eyes. Grandpa's hands twitched, and he rubbed his jaw in that way he always did when he was thinking. "You know, this whole thing," he said, "it's supposed to mean something, isn't it?" I wanted to respond. I wanted to tell him that it didn't. That it wasn't about the damn car. It was about everything else, everything that had piled up. But I didn't. I set the box on the porch and walked in, past them all, my heart pounding. The warmth of the house didn't reach me. The same old feeling came rushing back, the one where you're part of something but not really, where everyone else's needs always come first. Grandpa didn't say much after that, but he guided me to the table without another word, like we were both pretending things were normal. I sat down, staring at the box of ornaments, and the silence between us stretched out. I couldn't help but think about how easily they'd taken what was mine, how quickly my place in the family had shifted. I glanced at Grandpa, waiting for him to say something, but he just folded his napkin and stared ahead, like he was waiting for me to speak. But I didn't. And I think, deep down, neither of us was surprised. The table was quiet as Grandpa studied the surface of his coffee cup. I could feel Mom's eyes on me, sharp, like she was waiting for me to apologize for something. I didn't. I focused on the ornaments in front of me, the little painted snowflakes and robins, each one a reminder of everything I'd built with my own 2 hands. I hadn't asked for this life. I hadn't asked to be the family's problem solver, the one who picked up the slack, the one who silently covered everyone else's messes. But here I was, as always, doing exactly that. Mom's voice broke the silence. "You should be grateful. Bree needs the car. She's driving to meetings, making real moves. You know, things you could never get into." The words slid out like honey, sweet but with a sting. I bit my tongue. I wanted to tell her that I didn't care about Bree's meetings, or how many followers she had, or how many brand deals she was chasing. I wanted to tell her that I didn't need a car for meetings, that my workshop was all I needed. But the words never came. She had a way of making everything sound like a favor, like a gift, like I owed her for existing. Grandpa finally spoke, his voice steady and careful. "I don't understand. Why does Bree need your car?" Mom flashed him that smile. She always did when she wanted something. "She's got things going on, Dad. You know how hard she works." Bree's voice piped up from the other room. "It's not a big deal," she chirped, like we were all supposed to agree that the car was just some logistical decision. "I just need it for a few shoots. No biggie." I clenched my fists under the table. My own family didn't even care that they were running my life into the ground. Everything I owned, everything I had worked for, they saw it as communal property. My tools, my supplies, my car, all of it. Just part of the family business, where I was expected to foot the bill without question. Bree appeared in the doorway, her phone in one hand and a water bottle in the other, the familiar gleam of self-importance in her eyes. "It's just logistics," she repeated, like we were all idiots for not seeing it. "Bree," I said, my voice thin, the words coming out quieter than I intended. She barely glanced at me before turning back to Mom, her smile never faltering. Grandpa's gaze was fixed on me now, his eyes steady, but I could see the concern in them. He was waiting. For what? I wasn't sure. Maybe for me to say something, for me to stand up. But I didn't. I just sat there, staring at my hands, at the little flecks of paint, at the mess I'd made by not speaking up sooner. I thought back to when I was younger, when Grandpa had given me the BMW. He'd said it was for my work, for my business, that a craftsman needed reliable wheels. It was supposed to mean something, but now it felt like a joke. Mom's voice snapped me back to reality. You know, she said, like she was explaining it to a child. You're lucky we're even letting you keep your little business. Don't make us regret that. Her words were a slap, but they were also a reminder of what I'd been doing all along, letting them use me, letting them take what wasn't theirs, because it was easier than confronting them. I swallowed hard. My throat tight. The truth was right there, scratching at my chest, but I couldn't let it out. Not yet. I stared at the empty chair next to Grandpa, my pulse beating in my ears. The BMW. It had always been a symbol of something of my success, of Grandpa's pride in me. But now? Now it was just another thing taken. Bree's smile flashed in my mind again, all self-assured and careless. She'd taken it. Without asking, without even pretending to care about what it meant to me. So, Bree's using the BMW now? I finally asked, the words flat in my mouth. I didn't look at anyone. I couldn't. Mom's tone shifted, light and breezy. She's got a lot on her plate, Zoey. The car just makes sense. It's just logistics. Logistics. The word felt like a slap. My hands gripped the edge of the table so hard my fingers ached. Grandpa's silence weighed heavy. He wasn't angry, just confused. When did this happen? I almost flinched. Bree's voice answered from the doorway, too casual, like she was already in control of everything. A while ago, Grandpa. Don't make it a thing. She didn't even try to look guilty, just leaned against the doorframe, her phone held high like it was a crown. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words caught in my throat. I couldn't do it. I couldn't confront them like I should have, couldn't admit how badly they'd hurt me. Instead, I let it sit in the air, thick and suffocating. Grandpa shifted in his seat, rubbing his chin like he always did when he was thinking. He glanced at me, then back at Mom, his brow furrowing. Is this how we're doing things now? Just taking? Mom's eyes flashed, irritation breaking through her carefully constructed smile. Dad, don't make a scene. Bree smirked and walked away, clearly done with the conversation. I'll need it again next weekend for the shoot, she called over her shoulder, as if she were making plans for a family picnic. I felt a surge of frustration, but it was buried deep, hidden behind the layers of what I had always been, the fixer, the one who never rocked the boat. But the boat was already tipping, and I was just standing there, waiting for it to sink. Grandpa's voice broke through the tension, slow and steady. Zoey, are you okay with this? I glanced at him, at his weathered face, his eyes soft with concern. And for a moment, I wanted to tell him everything, how I'd spent my entire life watching my family take what wasn't theirs, how I had let them, because I didn't know how to say no. But I didn't. I just nodded. It's fine, I said, even though it wasn't, even though I could feel the weight of everything I'd never said, pressing down on me, threatening to crack me open. I took a breath and reached for the sample box. If I didn't focus on the ornaments, I might actually lose it. So, I forced myself to move, to act like nothing was wrong, but everything was wrong. The next morning, I found myself in the workshop, staring at the racks of ornaments, the air thick with the scent of paint and lacquer. I tried to focus, tried to keep my hands busy, but all I could think about was the BMW. It had been Grandpa's gift, a gesture that was supposed to mean something. Now it was just another tool for them to use. I heard a knock at the door. Bree, of course. She stepped in without waiting for an invitation, as usual. I was thinking, she started, the usual self-satisfaction in her voice. Maybe I can take some of your inventory for my brand. You know, To help get things moving. I looked up at her. Her eyes were wide, innocent, but I knew better. This was her way of taking without asking. Her way of making me feel like I owed her. I'm not sure I have the time to make extras right now, I said, keeping my voice steady. She ignored the hesitation, her smile not even faltering. Oh, come on. You've got a lot of stock, and I'm offering to help you out. You'll get exposure, and I'll make sure to tag your shop. I felt the old knot in my stomach tighten. I had heard that line a dozen times before. Exposure, she said, like it was supposed to be enough. I was tired of giving my work away for free, tired of being the family ATM. But every time I tried to push back, the guilt trip came. Please, Zoey. It'll be good for both of us, she pressed, stepping closer to the counter, her phone already out, ready to take pictures. I set the brush down, my hand trembling slightly. Bree, I said, finally meeting her gaze. I'm not giving away anything for free anymore. Her smile wavered for a second, and in that moment, I saw a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. Surprise, maybe? What's the big deal? She asked, the air of entitlement still there. I'm just helping you. I shook my head. No, you're taking from me. You always have. She blinked, clearly taken aback. The words stung, but they needed to be said. I was done being the family's silent giver. The room felt suddenly too small, too hot. I opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. I don't want to hear it, I said, my voice sharp. No more. You want something from me? Then pay for it, like everyone else. I watched her eyes narrow, the anger beginning to rise. For a second, I thought she might lash out, but she didn't. Instead, she just turned and walked out, the door slamming behind her with a force that echoed in the silence that followed. I stood there, breathing hard, my heart pounding. I had done it. I had actually said no, but as the adrenaline faded, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wouldn't be the last time they tried to use me. But it had to be. It had to be. I hadn't even finished my first cup of coffee when the phone rang. It was Mom. Zoey, she said, her voice laced with that sugary sweetness I had come to dread. We need to talk. About yesterday. I didn't say anything right away. I was still raw from the conversation with Bree. The last thing I wanted was another lecture from Mom. You know, she continued, you really should have just let Bree take a few ornaments. She's trying to build something, and you could have helped. I closed my eyes, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm not giving anything away for free anymore. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and I could almost hear the gears turning in her head. Zoey, that's not how we do things here. We help each other out. It's family. I wanted to scream. Family? She made it sound like I was being unreasonable, like I was the one who'd crossed a line. Helping means taking advantage, Mom. It's not the same. And she didn't answer right away, but I could hear the soft clicking of her nails on something, probably the counter. You're being stubborn, Zoey. You've always been like this. You know Bree's got big plans, and you're just so stuck in your little shop. She needs support. I clenched my jaw. No, she needs my stuff. She doesn't need my support. She needs my inventory, my time, and my money, and I'm done giving it to her. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. That's not what I meant. You think you're the only one working hard around here? I didn't say that, but I'm not carrying her anymore, I snapped, the words spilling out before I could stop them. I've been doing it for years, and I'm done. Silence. Long, suffocating silence. Finally, Mom spoke again, her voice a little colder now. Fine, if that's how you want it. I'll just tell Bree you said no, but don't think this won't cause problems. Then let it cause problems, I said. I'm done being your backup. I've been carrying all of you, and I won't do it anymore. The line went dead. I stared at my phone for a moment before setting it down on the table, my heart still racing. I wasn't sure if I felt relief or terror. Maybe both. I knew the next part wouldn't be easy, but I had made my choice. The next day, I sat in my workshop, staring at the spreadsheets I'd been avoiding for weeks. The numbers didn't lie. Every charge, every expense I'd covered for the family was listed in neat rows, the the total climbing higher and higher with each line. It felt like a weight that had been sitting on my chest for years. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I knew what I had to do. I opened my email and typed out a message. My fingers trembling as I listed every charge. I'd covered everything from mortgage payments to the unauthorized marketing costs Bree had racked up. It was all there. I could feel the tightness in my throat as I wrote out the words. This wasn't a simple family disagreement anymore. This was a boundary I was finally drawing. Asterisk, asterisk. I will not fund your bills this winter. I will not use Bree's marketing. I will not split profits. Return the BMW by Friday at 5 p.m. or I'll report unauthorized use of a business asset. Asterisk, asterisk. I stared at the screen for a long time, my pulse racing. I wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing, but it didn't matter anymore. I had to stand up for myself. I hit send before I could change my mind. The room felt too quiet after that, too still. My hands shook, but I didn't move. Not yet. It wasn't long before my phone buzzed. A message from Mom. Asterisk, asterisk, ungrateful. Your grandpa gave that car to our family. We decide what's best. Asterisk, asterisk. I stared at the message, the words cutting deeper than I expected. I wanted to respond, to argue, to tell her how much I'd sacrificed. But I didn't. I couldn't. There was no point. I had already made my decision. The next message came from Bree. It was a selfie of her with the BMW, her smile wide and carefree. Asterisk, asterisk. You ruined my weekend. Asterisk, asterisk. I could feel my anger rising, but I just put the phone down. I couldn't get sucked back into their manipulation. I spent the next few hours working, ignoring the messages, focusing on my ornaments. Each stroke of paint was like a small act of defiance, each line a reminder that this was mine. I wasn't going to lose it to them. By the time the clock hit 5 p.m., I had finished 3 custom orders and posted a new update on my shop's page. It felt like progress, like I was finally getting somewhere. Then, the headlights came into view. MRI pulled up in the BMW. I watched from the window as she stepped out, tossing the keys at me like they were a piece of trash. The car had a new scratch along the rear door. She didn't meet my eyes. The tank's low, she said flatly. I said nothing. Just took the keys, snapped a quick photo of the damage, and locked the car in place. She didn't wait for a reply. She just walked away, calling an Uber to take her wherever she was going next. I stood there for a moment, the keys heavy in my hand. The relief was almost overwhelming, but I couldn't quite shake the feeling of being hollowed out. It wasn't over. Not by a long shot, but I'd taken a step. The first real step. My phone buzzed again. Grandpa's message. Asterisk, asterisk, proud of you. Asterisk, asterisk. I sat down on the workbench, staring at the message for a moment before putting the phone down. Grandpa was the only one who really understood. The rest of them? They could deal with the fallout. I wasn't going to be anyone's bank anymore. I had a business to run. The next morning, I arrived at the market early. The sky was still gray, the cold creeping through my jacket, but the booth was set up and waiting. I could already hear the chatter of early morning vendors, the clink of cash registers, the familiar buzz of sales happening around me. But today was different. I wasn't just here to sell ornaments, I was here to make a statement. I set up my display, the tiny houses, the glass robins, the snowflakes glistening in the weak light. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel anything, really, except the weight of the decision I'd made. It was done. I was done. No more freebies. No more pretending like I didn't deserve something for myself. As I straightened a crooked ornament on the table, I saw Bree walking past the booth. She didn't stop. She didn't even look at me. But her eyes flicked toward my setup with a glance that was sharp, calculating. I could almost hear her thinking, why didn't she just give me some ornaments? Why didn't she just play along? I didn't care. Grandpa showed up around 9, wearing his old wool coat. He didn't say much at first, just nodded as he walked over, looking at my work like he was inspecting a job well done. Good curve on that G, he said, tapping the letters of a name I was working on. Thanks, I said, finally feeling like I was doing something right. Finally feeling like I had the space to breathe. He didn't mention Mom. He didn't have to. By noon, I'd sold out of the dog bone ornaments. A woman came by and asked for one with the name Milo and a tiny heart. As I wrote the name, my phone buzzed. Another message from Mom. Asterisk, asterisk, you embarrassed us with that email? Asterisk, asterisk. I muted the thread, ignoring her words. My shop was buzzing, customers laughing as they picked out ornaments. It was the first time in a long time I felt like I wasn't just existing, like I was making something that mattered. Dad drifted past the booth, hands stuffed deep in his jacket. He glanced over at me like he wasn't sure whether to approach or not. He didn't say anything for a long time. Finally, he spoke, his voice quiet. Your mother's upset. I looked up at him, giving him a tight smile. I know. He nodded once and left. It was the most we'd said in months, but it felt like a hollow victory. He was just as passive as ever. He didn't get it. As the day wore on, the guilt from Mom's messages started to creep in, but I shoved it down. I couldn't go back. I couldn't let them pull me into their games again. Grandpa stayed until late afternoon, sitting behind the booth with a thermos of coffee. He didn't say much more, but he didn't need to. The silence between us was comfortable, like it always had been. When I packed up at the end of the day, I felt light. It wasn't a win yet, but it was a step forward. I hadn't let them pull me back in. I hadn't given up my life, my business, for their comfort. I knew the storm wasn't over, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel afraid of it. The weeks that followed felt different. I spent my time working, focusing on the shop, making ornaments, and slowly building something that was mine. I didn't feel the weight of the family's expectations anymore. I wasn't carrying them. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. The phone still buzzed every so often, but I didn't look. Mom sent more messages, asking if I was bringing ornaments for family dinners, complaining about the way I handled things. I ignored them. I didn't need to explain myself anymore. The door to the shop opened one afternoon, and I looked up to see Grandpa standing there, a slight smile on his face. How's the shop? He asked, his voice steady, as if everything was fine. It's good, I said. I wiped my hands on a rag and moved a few things around on the counter. Sales are picking up. I've got some regulars now. Grandpa didn't say anything for a moment, just watched me. I could feel his eyes on me, and for once, it didn't feel like a judgment. It felt like approval. I'm proud of you, Zoey, he said softly, almost like he was testing the words out. I smiled back at him. Thanks, Grandpa, he nodded. I saw your post. People are talking about your work. That's good. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The silence between us was comfortable. It was how things had always been, but now it felt right. Later that day, I got a message from Dad. It was short, just a couple of lines. Asterisk, asterisk, your grandpa's proud of you. Keep it up. Asterisk, asterisk. I put my phone down and got back to work. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was doing the right thing. For me. Mom sent another message a few days later, asking if I could help Bri with some new project. I read it, then deleted it. I didn't need to respond. When I drove past Mom's house one evening, I saw Bri through the window, filming herself in front of the Christmas tree. Her smile was wide, the lights perfect, her life curated for the camera. A pang hit my chest, but I didn't stop. I just kept driving, my hands steady on the wheel. I was building something different now, something real. I had my own space, my own work, and my own boundaries, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away. The phone buzzed again, but this time, I didn't pick it up. I had cocoa to make, the shop to open in the morning, and a life that finally felt like it was mine.